Hello folks, welcome to this episode of Rich Insights. I'm Don Rich, Head of Investments for Esoterica Capital Markets. Today's topic is the health of the U.S. consumer. We want to determine just how well positioned the consumer was going into the downturn. That's going to give us two pieces of information. Just how well they likely weathered the downturn in the first place, and second, how quickly they're likely to recover once the economy reopens. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right into this. Here we have savings rates. Savings rates as a percent of disposable income. And of course, the higher the number, the better on this chart. Now, this chart is divided here at the 5% level. Economists suggest, and again, it's purely a suggestion, but they think it's prudent that you save at least 5% of your disposable income. All right, you can see during the Great Recession period, we were well below that 5% mark. What? Where are we at today? Well, in March, we were actually above 13%. Above 13% savings rate. And even before March, for the last year and a half, 2 years, we've been floating in the 7 to 8% range. The consumer has been behaving prudently. They have been saving. They haven't been overspending. They haven't been getting too far out in front of their skis. All right. So we'll start with that piece of information, the savings rate. That looks very positive. Now our next topic is a topic that Warren Buffett raised over the weekend. He was talking about credit cards, right? He was expressing some concern with credit card balances. But really, his main point didn't have anything specifically to do with credit cards. What he was really saying was that if you're paying double-digit interest rates on any liability, whether it's your auto loans, credit cards, whatever, if you're paying 15, 20% interest, you should first pay them off before you think about investing, because you're not going to get 15 or 20% returns in the current investment environment. So again, he targeted his comments at the credit cards, but they were really much more general than that. Okay, so let's move to the credit cards. Go back to the charts here. Here we're looking at what's called the revolving credit balance. That's the term the Fed uses for this. Now, for the most part, revolving credit for consumers is the credit card. Okay, now you can see this thing has been increasing and continues to increase. There's still no evidence yet that we've started to roll over. And we are higher than we were back in 2008, right? These are concerns, right? And that may be why Buffett chose credit cards to highlight. But you have to remember, again, this is not adjusted for inflation. So on the one hand, we'd probably expect to be higher than we were back in 2008. But nevertheless, this is of some concern. Let's push this a step further, though. This is just a raw balance we're looking at here. All right. Now, this chart goes all the way back to the 1970s. What we're looking at is the year-over-year change, or the growth in the credit card balance that you were looking at before. The growth. Now, you can see in the run-up to the Great Recession, the growth numbers that we were looking at that time. Now, compare that to where we're at today, right? 2.9%, the most recent reading here. Credit balances are growing at 3%, less than 3% right now. All right. So, our previous chart, that one's concerning. But when we look at it on a difference basis, or look at it on a growth basis, it's far less concerning. I want to push this one step further here. Credit card delinquency rates. And what we see here is that the delinquency rates, these are credit card balances that are over 30 days overdue. All right, it's 1.5%, 1.5%, one of the lowest levels we've ever seen. Right. Again, going into the Great Recession, the consumer did not have any buffer at all. They were already in trouble going into the slowdown. That's the big difference this time. This time in 2008 are completely different animals. Now they have a common denominator: debt. Debt is a problem today, and it was a problem in 2008. But in 2008, the main problem was housing, right? We were overpaying for housing. We had the subprime mortgages. We had the banks allowing us to get overextended. So it was the individuals and the banks that were in trouble due to debt in 2008. Today, for the most part, the individuals are in good shape. We're going to get back and I'll show you some more evidence of that. But today, the individuals are in pretty good shape. The banks are in very good shape. The debt problem today lies with the corporates and with the sovereigns, the governments. All right, it's a completely different animal. Still a debt problem, but it's a completely different animal from that context. All right, so let's get back to the charts. Now, again, we're looking through examining the consumer balance sheet here. So far, we've examined the savings rates, which were quite positive, and we examined the credit cards. Now, let's go a step further. And instead of just looking at the credit card liabilities, let's look at all the liabilities that the consumer faces. All right. So, again, not just credit cards, but the mortgage payments, the auto payments, everything. Lump them all together. Household debt payments as a percent of disposable income. All right. Household debt payments. Where are we at? Well, the most recent observation is in December, right? This comes out quarterly. We don't have the March 31 number yet. But in December, going into the downturn, debt burdens were at 9.7%, right? Less than 10%. And you can see this chart goes all the way back to 1980. So for the last 30 years, we can see where the consumer has been and where they're at today. And our debt burdens today are actually near the lowest they've been in 30 years. That is remarkable. The consumer is staying current on their credit card balances. They're saving, and they're not taking on an erroneous amount of other debt that it appears. All right, so all that looks pretty good. It's pretty exciting. There is one area of concern, though. One area of concern. And that has to do with auto delinquencies. All right, not the credit card, right? The credit card delinquencies were fine. But if we look at auto loans and leases that are over 90-day delinquent, we can see since 2016 we've been gradually increasing. Now over 5% of the auto loans are in some stage of delinquency. And we can compare that number again back to the peak of the last cycle. All right, so this is the area of concern. This is the area that I wished Buffett would have highlighted and tried to call people's attention to that, because I think that's much more of a problem. But all in all, it's pretty good news. And we haven't had much good news lately. So to do a thorough examination of the U.S. consumer and see that they have been prudently managing their finances going into this slowdown, that to me is very encouraging. All right, so that's our message for today. I'm Don Rich. You just experienced a rich insight. I hope you've enjoyed it. May your beer be colder than the company you keep. We'll talk again soon.